Hey everyone, Steve with SR Fishing here, and today earlier scrolling through social media fishing pages and come across a question someone asked about their local pond that they fish at, having a murky, mucky, grassy bottom, and what they could use for that because they're tired of bringing up junk all the time. It got me thinking that maybe that'd be a good video to talk about here today. So we're going to dive into a few things that I like to use for that. And number one, most obvious, probably being top water. So we'll talk about that a little bit, but we'll skip that for the most part. But we'll go over a few other things that I like to use in those types of kind of murky and mucky, muddy bottoms to at least limit how much of that junk you bring up with you. So, yeah, let's see what we can figure out. All right, here we are inside my tackle space of my garage now, and we'll kind of go over a few different things of tackle that might be able to work, and I guess talk about those kind of murky, muddy, grassy bottoms that won't bring you back a bunch of junk on your hook. Obviously, like I said, couple of the obvious choices would be anything like top water. Um, like depending on how much vegetation is actually growing up through there, you might be able to get away with a propeller style bait. This is the defense bait and tackle. This is your propeller style bait here, most commonly known as like a whopper plopper. That would be good to run across the top. Like I said, depending on how much that vegetation is actually growing up to the surface of the water, that could be an option with the treble hooks on there. Anything that's growing up, you will have a tendency to maybe get snagged, but is an option, again, because it is top water. Another option would be any type of hollow body frog, or any soft frog for that matter. This here is the defense bait and tackle popping frog. But like I said, any type of hollow body frog would be a good option in that. Completely weedless. It's not going to obviously bring up any of that muck from the bottom. But depending on what your water quality is looking like, just pick your frog based off of that. If your water's fairly clear and you got a sunny day, a white belly or anything kind of natural work. If it's cloudy, overcast, or kind of murky, you want to tend to look towards more of a darker underbody of the frog to paint a nice silhouette for them to look up at. But again, that's a couple of options from a top water standpoint. Now getting into some things that actually kind of go to the bottom. One of them that I like to use is a wacky rig. There was a comment on that post that I saw where somebody had mentioned doing a wacky rig, and then somebody had commented, well, that defeats the purpose of it. That's not weedless. You can have a weedless wacky rig that works perfect. Here I just have a regular stick bait. I believe this is a Yum Dinger here with your O-ring from your to wacky rig it. Wacky rigging, I just use your basic wacky tool. You put the stick bait here on the inside, and then you have your cache of little rubber gaskets down here. Just roll it on. By wacky rigging with the O-ring, just allows you to save your soft plastics a bit, where you don't go through them as fast because they do have a tendency to tear if you straight rig them to the hook. So I like to use just a rubber gasket. Some people will double them up and kind of cross them. I mean, you may save a little bit more by doing that way. I've always just used the one. That seems more than sufficient on that. But the hooks that I like to use are these here. They have this nice little wire weed guard that just kind of pushes down and off to the side, allows you to rig your worm on there, and then you just flip it back here. This works so great at preventing weeds and getting anything stuck that's on the bottom. It allows you to sink the worm down to the bottom and to really fish it down there efficiently and effectively. and like I said, you're not bringing up any of that junk from underneath on the bottom. It's really easy to use and effective. I believe this one is the Mustad Ultra Point weedless wacky hook. I believe this is a 2/0. Check out Defense Bait and Tackle as well. We have a one very similar to this that works great. I've used that one as well. I just don't have any on hand at the moment, but yeah, you fish this to the bottom, it's gonna come up virtually weedless. It's gonna allow you to fish the bottom. Now, another option that you have that you may question, but it works pretty effectively, is actually a drop shot. When you use a drop shot, the only thing that would be touching the bottom would be your weight, and those typically, if that pulls up a little bit of or a bunch of junk, it's not as big of a deal. Your hook and your lure that you're using is pretty much in the clear. So you're just dragging along that stuff at the bottom, and it's not going to impact your presentation at all. Whether you're using, a teardrop weight or your cylinder weight, either one is going to come through kind of mud or any type of grass vegetation that might be down there. It's going to come through there pretty good. As far as what I like to use for the lure on the drop shots, I had a couple that I like to stick with. The 6-inch juggle minnow. These have a fantastic profile to nose hook them. The other two that I like, or the other one I like to use, are the KVD Perfect Plastics half shell. This is the Prism shad, and I also like to run the bold bluegill color. Again, I like to just nose hook these. Nothing fancy, just right through the top, right on the nose. It works pretty well. It gives a good presentation, and you just drag it along at the bottom. Again, like I said, that the weight may pick up some of the mud and gunk that's on the bottom, but at least your lure's gonna come and your hook's gonna come through free and clear. Now, another option to finally close out here, it's not necessarily something that you would drag along the bottom, but if you do have heavy cover that you're coming through, vegetation, a coontail, grasses, you name it, a swim jig is a great option to get through that. That way you can fish it through the middle, as they, bass like to hide within the vegetation and find cover. Using this type of option is something else that you can look towards. This one here in particular is the Buckeye Lures. It's called their Brush Panda. I like this one for very heavy, thick cover. As you can see here, the jig head and where the brush guard comes up is kind of integrated more towards the nose, which makes it very stout when it's coming through any of that thick stuff. This is like a bluegill color. I also like to use it I have the same thing in a black and blue. I have on a Bass Mooch Swiss craw on there right now that I like to use. Then I have another one I just picked up, is actually still in the package. I believe this is just like a shad color. I don't remember the exact name of it, but yeah, Treadfin translucent shad. There we go. So those are some options for you. Other options is your basic Arky head as well, that can go through there, and even just your normal swim jig head. The one that's very pointed and narrow, that will come through some heavy cover just as well, and pretty good. All right, so there's some options that you have for those ponds and areas that you come through that I have that junky, mucky bottom, that should be effective and help you prevent from bringing a bunch of that junk up and having to clean your lure off every single time. So hope that was helpful, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to help answer them. Comment here down below on this YouTube video. Be happy to help. Check out my TikTok and Instagram. I'm at Steve Reuter Fishing. And please like and subscribe to the video. I'd appreciate it. And we'll catch you next time. Take care, tight lines, and God bless.